The night at the luxury hotel. The night was calm, yet the lobby of the luxury hotel carried an air of quiet tension. People walked with pride, dressed in shining clothes, their voices filled with the kind of tone that comes only when they feel above others. Chandeliers sparkled, polished marble floors reflected light like mirrors, and a gentle piano played in the corner. To most, it was a place of elegance. But for Lakhmi Pichai, it felt like a test she never asked for. Lakhmi had never been drawn to luxury. She lived her life in simple ways, with humility stitched into every action. She did not wear expensive jewels, and she never tried to show herself greater than others. But tonight she had entered this hotel, holding her son's hand, and instantly felt how eyes turned toward her. It was not admiration. It was the silent whisper of judgment. The receptionist glanced at her clothes, a simple sari with light embroidery, worn with dignity but without the shine expected in such places. Her tone became sharp, cold, and laced with a hidden insult. "Madam, are you sure you belong to this place?" The words cut deep, not because they were loud, but because they carried the weight of humiliation wrapped in politeness. Sundar Pichai stood beside his mother, watching every small change in her face. He had grown up learning patience from her, learning humility from the way she lived. She had always told him, "Never let your heart be heavier than your kindness," but today, her kindness was met with disrespect. Sundar's chest tightened, not with anger alone, but with the fear that his mother might feel small in front of strangers who could never understand her worth. Around them, the hotel staff continued their work, ignoring what was happening, pretending it was nothing. But for Sundar, it was not nothing. He saw the slight tremor in his mother's hands, the way she tried to keep her head high, the way she tried not to let anyone see her hurt. She was not weak. She was strong. Yet even the strongest hearts can bleed when faced with disrespect. "Please," Lakhmi said softly, her voice steady despite the insult, "we are only here for the event." She did not raise her voice, she did not fight back. She believed in dignity, in not allowing anger to poison her. But Sundar knew silence should never be mistaken for weakness. And then, as if fate had written this moment to test everyone in that lobby, the doors opened. Narendra Modi walked in, greeted by the staff with respect, their voices suddenly sweet, their posture instantly straight. The same receptionist who had questioned Lakhmi's presence now bowed her head with a smile that had not been offered a moment ago. Sundar noticed. And so did Modi. As Modi walked further, his eyes caught Sundar and Lakhmi standing quietly. He slowed, sensing something unspoken in the air. Modi had always believed that true character is revealed in how one treats those who seem powerless. And here, before his eyes, he saw the contrast. The same staff who bent with respect for him had moments ago raised walls of arrogance against a woman whose only difference was simplicity. Before anyone could speak, Sundar stepped forward. His voice was calm, but it carried strength. "My mother deserves the same respect you just gave him," he said, pointing gently toward Modi. "You look at her sari and see less, but I look at her and see everything that made me who I am." The lobby froze. Whispers stopped. The sound of the piano suddenly felt too loud. The receptionist lowered her eyes, shame filling the silence. And Lakhmi, who had tried to stay calm, felt a tear slip down her cheek, not from weakness, but from the pride of seeing her son stand by her, refusing to let the world treat her with anything less than respect. Narendra Modi watched quietly, his face thoughtful. In that moment, he realized the true meaning of respect was not in grand welcomes or polished smiles. It was in standing beside the people who gave you life, in protecting their dignity when others tried to take it away. He walked closer, looked at Lakhmi, and joined his hands. "This," he said softly, "is the real meaning of respect." The silence that spoke louder. The lobby did not return to its usual flow after Modi's words. People stood still, their eyes shifting between Sundar, Lakhmi, and Modi. The chandeliers still glowed, the piano still played, yet the air had changed. It was heavier, charged with a truth no one could ignore. Respect was not about wealth, and humility was not weakness. Yet not everyone in that lobby understood it in their hearts. The receptionist bowed quickly, whispering an apology to Lakhmi, her words thin and rushed. "I am sorry, madam, I did not mean," but the words stumbled and fell flat. Apology meant little when it came from fear of being caught rather than true regret. Sundar could see it in her eyes. She was not sorry because she realized her mistake. She was sorry because Narendra Modi had seen it. Lakhmi did not reply harshly. She gave a faint nod, her dignity untouched, her calm voice steady. Respect is not given to clothes. It is given to hearts. I hope you remember this. Her words, soft and simple, carried more power than any lecture could. And though the staff lowered their heads, Sundar knew the lesson would stay only with those who wanted to learn. As the event inside the hotel began, Sundar guided his mother toward the hall. Modi followed close behind, watching them, thinking about what had just unfolded. Sundar had not raised his voice, he had not demanded revenge, yet his stand had silenced arrogance better than anger ever could. Modi thought to himself, strength is not in showing power. Strength is in standing up for dignity with calm courage. Inside the grand hall, the atmosphere was very different. Decorated tables, golden lights, and rows of chairs welcomed important guests from across the world. Conversations were filled with pride, some about business, some about politics, some about achievements. Yet Sundar, sitting beside his mother, heard something else in those voices. He heard distance. He heard how people often forget humanity when they become too busy displaying success. The speeches began, one after another. Words about progress, growth, and future filled the air. People clapped politely, smiled at the right times, and shook hands with practiced ease. But for Lakhmi, the earlier moment in the lobby still stayed in her heart. She looked at Sundar and whispered, "You did not have to say anything, my son. I am used to people like that." Sundar turned to her, his voice quiet but firm. "Amma, silence in front of insult only makes it grow stronger. I cannot let anyone lower your dignity. Everything I am today is because of you. If I stay quiet, then I fail you." His words touched her deeply. For years, she had lived teaching him humility, but today he was teaching her something too, that humility never meant accepting disrespect. Narendra Modi, seated a few rows behind, overheard fragments of their words. He leaned back, thoughtful. He had seen countless events, countless speeches, countless promises. But very rarely had he seen such an unshaken bond between mother and son. He thought, the world claps for power, but the world truly changes when love and respect become power. Then, as the evening moved forward, something unexpected happened. During a break between speeches, one of the guests, a wealthy businessman, walked up to Lakhmi. His tone carried hidden arrogance, coated in politeness. "Madam, it is rare to see someone like you in a place like this. Your son has reached heights, but do you not feel out of place here?" The question was sharp, disguised as curiosity. People nearby heard it and turned to watch. The air once again filled with the weight of judgment. Sundar's jaw tightened, his eyes fixed on the man. Before he could respond, Lakhmi spoke, her voice calm, her face serene. "I do not feel out of place, sir. I feel at home anywhere my son stands by me. It is not the walls of a hotel that decide where I belong. It is the strength of love." The hall grew quiet for a moment, surprised by her words. The businessman smiled awkwardly, his pride shaken, his tongue caught by her simplicity. Sundar felt a wave of pride wash over him. She did not need jewels, or wealth, or fame. Her words alone shined brighter than all the chandeliers above them. Narendra Modi watched again, this time with a deeper sense of respect for Lakhmi herself. It was not just Sundar who carried strength. It was her. The way she carried herself, the way she turned insult into wisdom, the way she refused to let anyone define her worth, it was a lesson the world needed to hear. He whispered to himself, this is what the real meaning of respect looks like. But what none of them knew was that this night was far from over. The event was about to take a turn that would test everyone once more, pulling open wounds from the past, and reminding even the strongest hearts that respect is not won once, it must be proven again and again. Shadows from the past. The applause from the last speech faded, but the silence that followed felt heavier than any words spoken that night. Sundar sat beside his mother, quietly holding her hand, while Narendra Modi observed from a short distance. The evening was far from finished, yet there was already a feeling that something deeper was about to unfold. As the guests mingled during the short break, whispers filled the air. Some spoke about Sundar's bold words in the lobby, some admired Lakhmi's calm strength, but others mocked in hushed tones, still tied to their pride. It was clear respect could not be forced into every heart. Then came a voice from the far end of the hall. Strong, commanding, yet laced with bitterness. So this is the man everyone praises, the one who leads with humility. Heads turned. A tall figure in a dark suit stepped forward, his eyes fixed on Sundar. He was not an unknown man. His name carried weight in business circles. Rajat Varma, a wealthy hotel owner who believed success gave him the right to look down on others. Rajat smiled, but it was the kind of smile that hid an insult. Mr. Pichai, it is good to see you here. But let me ask you, what message do you send when you bring someone unfitting into such gatherings? He looked toward Lakhmi as if her presence were a flaw. The hall went quiet. All eyes locked on Sundar, waiting to see how he would respond. Narendra Modi leaned slightly forward, his face serious. He knew this was not just another insult. This was a challenge meant to belittle not just Lakhmi, but everything Sundar stood for. Sundar rose slowly, calm but unshaken. His voice carried no anger, but it carried truth. Mr. Varma, do you know what is unfitting? It is unfitting to measure worth by clothes and walls. It is unfitting to think wealth gives you the right to decide who belongs where. My mother's strength and dignity cannot be compared with chandeliers or carpets. Her respect is beyond your reach. Rajat laughed, his voice sharp. Nice words, but this is the real world. Here, power decides respect. Not stories of humility. Before Sundar could speak again, Lakhmi gently placed her hand on his arm. Her eyes were steady, her voice soft but filled with quiet power. My son, she said, sometimes silence hurts the proud more than words. Let him speak, for his own voice will reveal what he is. Her words struck the hall like a whisper of thunder. Rajat's face stiffened. He wanted to argue, but something in her calm eyes stopped him. There was no fear in her, no need to defend herself. Her silence was louder than his arrogance. Narendra Modi finally stood, his presence commanding the room without effort. Respect is not measured by money or fame, he said firmly. I have seen men with nothing who carried more dignity than palaces. And I have seen men with everything lose their humanity. Tonight, we are not here to measure clothes or riches. We are here to measure hearts. And from what I have seen, no heart in this room shines brighter than hers. He pointed toward Lakhmi. The hall erupted in murmurs, many nodding in agreement, some bowing their heads in shame. Rajat, however, clenched his jaw, his pride unwilling to bend. He gave a cold smile and said, "Very well, Prime Minister. But the night is long. Let us see if respect alone can stand against the power of pride." Those words carried a warning. Sundar felt it, Modi sensed it, and even Lakhmi knew the evening had only just revealed its first storm. There were still shadows waiting to rise, testing not only dignity but also the bond of family and the meaning of true respect. The test of dignity. Rajat Varma's words lingered in the air long after he spoke them. His smile was sharp, but behind it burned a plan. He was not used to being challenged, and Sundar's calm truth, supported by Modi's voice, had bruised his pride. He wanted to prove that power, not respect, ruled the world. As the banquet began, waiters moved gracefully across the hall, serving dishes in shining plates. Chandeliers sparkled above, and music floated gently. But under the glitter, tension grew. Rajat whispered to his aides, and soon a quiet arrangement began. Sundar noticed the shifting eyes, the murmurs, the quick movements of the staff who seemed more loyal to Rajat than to the hotel's honor. Something was being prepared, not for celebration, but for humiliation. When the next round of guests stood to give toasts, Rajat lifted his glass and called out loudly, "Let us honor the greatness of achievement. Let us honor those who rise to the top and carry our country's name forward." His words sounded grand, and people clapped politely. Then, with a sudden twist in his voice, he added, "But let us also ask, should we not ensure our gatherings reflect the highest standards? After all, this is not a place for ordinary presents." His eyes moved deliberately toward Lakhmi. The hall froze. Some guests lowered their gaze, uncomfortable. Some whispered. Others waited to see how Sundar or Modi would react. It was not a direct insult, but it was sharp enough to pierce. Sundar rose slowly. He did not shout. He did not even hold a glass in his hand. His words were steady, spoken with quiet strength. My mother is not ordinary. She is extraordinary. You see only her simple clothes, but I see the years she carried me, the sacrifices she made, the strength she gave me when I had nothing. Every step of mine was built on her silent strength. If that is ordinary, then I pray the world has more such ordinary souls. The hall broke into sudden applause. People rose to their feet, clapping, not out of formality, but out of genuine emotion. Many eyes turned moist, as the truth of his words touched them deeply. Rajat's smile faltered, but he was not ready to surrender. He signaled again, and soon the waiters brought forward a large golden chair, decorated in jewels, and placed it in the center of the hall. Rajat announced, since we are speaking of respect, let us give her the highest chair in the hall. Let us place her where all can see. His tone was not honor, it was mockery disguised as generosity. All eyes turned to Lakhmi. For a moment, silence filled the hall again. Sundar's heart tightened, knowing this was another trap. Rajat wanted to turn her into a spectacle, to laugh behind polite faces, to show the contrast between her simplicity and the chair's grandeur. But Lakhmi rose slowly, her face calm, her steps steady. She walked to the golden chair, but instead of sitting, she placed her hand gently on it. Her voice was soft, but each word carried power. Respect is not in chairs made of gold. Respect is in how you speak, in how you see others, in how you honor hearts. I do not need this chair to feel respected. My respect comes from the love of my son, and the dignity I carry within. She turned away from the chair and walked back to her seat beside Sundar. The hall erupted into thunderous applause, louder and longer than before. Even the musicians stopped playing, their eyes wide with admiration. Narendra Modi stood once again, his voice strong. Tonight we have witnessed what true greatness looks like. Wealth can buy gold, but it cannot buy respect. Respect must be earned, and this mother has shown us all the meaning of dignity. Rajat's face darkened. He tried to hide it, but his pride was burning. His plan had backfired twice. Yet the night was not done, and deep inside, he began to prepare something more dangerous, something that would go beyond words. The breaking point. The hall's applause still echoed when Rajat Varma's eyes narrowed. His pride had been wounded twice, first by Sundar's words and then by Lakhmi's calm refusal of the golden chair. To him, this was not just humiliation. It was a battle he could not afford to lose. Pride often blinds men, and Rajat was already blinded. The banquet continued, but a storm brewed beneath the calm. Sundar could sense it. He kept a close watch, noticing how Rajat whispered to his aides, how the staff moved quickly in corners, how faces turned uneasy. Lakhmi, however, sat steady, sipping water, her presence calm as if she carried a shield of silence. Narendra Modi, watching from across the hall, felt the tension as well. He leaned toward one of his security men and whispered, "Stay alert. Pride does not end with words. Sometimes it tries to break respect through actions." Moments later, Rajat stood again, raising his voice to capture everyone's attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight is not just about speeches. Tonight is about showing what true standards mean. And to keep such standards, sometimes we must separate what belongs and what does not." His words were sharp, and his next signal was even sharper. Waiters walked toward Sundar's table, and before anyone could stop them, they placed a slip of paper on the table in front of Lakhmi. It was a bill, an exaggerated, insulting gesture, as if reminding her that her presence was a debt, not a right. The hall gasped. Whispers spread like fire. Some faces showed shock, some discomfort, but some smirked, feeding on the humiliation. Rajat stood tall, his eyes fixed on Sundar, waiting to see if this would finally break him. Sundar rose instantly, his face calm but his eyes burning with quiet fire. He picked up the slip, held it high for everyone to see, and then tore it slowly in half. His voice carried across the hall. "You cannot put a price on dignity. You cannot measure respect with paper. If you think this insult makes my mother smaller, then you do not understand respect at all. Respect is not for sale. It is not written on bills. It is lived in hearts. The hall erupted again, louder than before, with claps and even shouts of agreement. Many guests rose to their feet. Sundar's words had reached them in ways Rajat's wealth never could. Lakhmi touched her son's arm gently, her eyes filled with both pride and sadness. My son, your words are strong, but remember, sometimes the more truth you speak, the more pride will fight back. Rajat's face turned red. He slammed his glass on the table, the sound echoing through the hall. Enough, he barked. This is my place. My walls. My rules. If you do not like them, then leave. Respect is decided here by me, not by lectures of humility. The hall went silent again. Everyone turned towards Sundar, waiting. Narendra Modi slowly rose to his feet, his presence filling the silence. No, Mr. Varma, he said firmly. Respect is not decided by you, nor by walls, nor by wealth. Respect is decided by how we treat those who cannot fight back. And tonight, you have failed that test. Rajat clenched his fists, his pride now completely broken in front of everyone. He had wanted to humiliate, but instead he stood humiliated. Yet even in his defeat, his eyes burned with anger. And anger, when fed by pride, does not fade quietly. The banquet had turned into a battlefield of values, humility against arrogance, respect against pride. But the night was still not finished. Rajat had one final move left, and it would test Sundar and Lakhmi beyond anything they had faced yet. The hardest trial. The hall was heavy with silence after Modi's words. The chandeliers still glowed, the music still played faintly, but it felt like the air itself had stopped moving. Rajat Varma stood stiff, his pride burning hotter with every cheer that had risen for Sundar and Lakhmi. His world was built on control, and tonight that control was slipping away before his eyes. But Rajat was not ready to accept defeat. Pride has a way of turning into cruelty when cornered. He whispered something to his aides, and within minutes, a group of staff approached Sundar's table. Their steps were hesitant, their eyes unsure, but they followed Rajat's orders. Sir, one of them said, voice trembling, we must ask your mother to step outside the hall. The words fell like thunder. Gasps spread through the room. Even those who had remained quiet before now looked shocked. This was no longer about insults or tricks. This was open humiliation, a command to remove Lakhmi as if she were unworthy of standing in the same space. Sundar rose instantly, his chair sliding back. His voice, though calm, carried a storm inside it. You dare to ask my mother to leave this hall? She has done nothing but sit with dignity. If you want someone to leave, it should be the ones who cannot see the value of respect. The aides froze, unsure of what to do. All eyes turned to Rajat, who stood with a smirk, thinking he had forced Sundar into a corner. But before Sundar could speak further, Lakhmi gently touched his arm. Her voice was soft, steady, and filled with a strength that no insult could touch. My son, do not fight for me with anger. Let me stand by my own dignity. If they ask me to step outside, I will go. But when I walk out, let the world remember it was not me who lost respect tonight. It was them. The hall trembled with silence. People felt her words strike deep, heavier than any argument. Many lowered their heads, ashamed. Narendra Modi stepped forward now, his face strong and unyielding. No, he said firmly, she will not leave. If she leaves, I leave. And if I leave, this entire gathering will lose its honor. The world will not remember your wealth, Rajat Varma. It will remember that you drove away dignity with your pride. A wave of agreement spread across the hall. Several guests stood in support, some clapping, some speaking out loud, she stays. She deserves respect, their voices grew louder, drowning out Rajat's control. Rajat's face turned pale. He had tried to break her dignity, but instead the hall itself had risen against him. Yet even in defeat, his eyes carried anger, refusing to admit he had been wrong. Sundar held his mother's hand, his voice quiet but filled with love. Amma, you will not leave. Tonight, you have already taught them what respect means. But now the hall itself stands with you. You do not walk out alone. You walk carrying the truth that no insult can erase. Lakhmi's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of pride. She had always taught her son humility, and tonight he had shown the world its true power. But Rajat, humiliated before all, turned sharply toward the exit. His steps were quick, his pride shattered, but his anger still alive. And as he disappeared from the hall, everyone knew the night was not only about wealth or power. It was about the meaning of respect, proven in the hardest trial. The real meaning of respect. The hall was still buzzing with emotion after Rajat Varma stormed out. Guests whispered to one another, some shaken, some inspired, all carrying the weight of what had just happened. The chandeliers above no longer felt like symbols of wealth. Instead, they seemed like silent witnesses to a lesson the world needed to hear. Sundar sat beside his mother, holding her hand tightly. He looked at her face, calm and steady as always, and felt tears rise in his own eyes. "Amma," he whispered, "tonight you showed more strength than any speech I could ever give. You stood tall without anger, without pride, only with dignity. You reminded them, and me, that respect is not given by others, it is carried within." Lakhmi smiled gently. "My son, I only lived as I have always lived. I do not carry jewels, but I carry faith. I do not walk in silk, but I walk in truth. And when you walk in truth, no one can take away your respect." The hall grew quiet as Narendra Modi stepped to the center. His voice carried deep weight, not only as a leader but as a man who had witnessed something unforgettable. "Tonight," he said, "we saw what real power is. It is not in chandeliers, or carpets, or chairs of gold. It is in the strength of a mother who never allowed her dignity to be sold. It is in a son who stood by her side with courage. It is in the truth that respect cannot be demanded by wealth. Respect must be lived, must be earned, must be protected." Applause thundered through the hall, not polite applause, but the kind that rises from hearts touched by truth. Many guests stood with tears in their eyes, realizing that they had learned something greater than any speech about progress or business. They had seen respect itself come alive before them. Modi walked toward Lakhmi, joined his hands, and bowed slightly. "Ma," he said softly, "tonight you did not just teach this hall. You taught me. You showed the real meaning of respect." Lakhmi, humble as always, shook her head. "I taught nothing, beta. I only lived as I always do. Respect begins in the home, in how we treat those closest to us. If it shines there, it will shine everywhere." Sundar looked at the room, his voice strong but tender. "Remember this night," he said. "Remember that respect is not for those with power alone. Respect belongs to everyone. If you give it freely, it will return to you greater than gold." The hall once again broke into applause, the sound filling every corner. But this time, there was no arrogance, no pretense. It was pure. It was honest. It was respect. Outside, the city lights glittered against the night sky. Rajat Varma's name would fade with time, but the story of a mother's dignity and a son's courage would remain. It would be told not as a tale of wealth or politics, but as a reminder that humility, kindness, and respect are greater than any throne of gold. As the evening ended, Lakhmi stood with Sundar by her side. She looked at him and said softly, "My son, tonight you gave me a gift no jewel could match. You gave me the gift of standing by me." Sundar smiled, his eyes wet. "Amma, I only gave back what you gave me every day of my life, your strength, your love, your respect." Narendra Modi, walking beside them, whispered as if speaking to himself, "This is the real meaning of respect." And with those words, the story of that night in the luxury hotel was sealed forever, not as a story of wealth, but as a story of dignity, humility, and love.